Alright, so let's start. The first thing in your project, I already opened the animation blueprints and also the third person character blueprint, but let's start with the animations. So the first thing is I see a do once node to cast to a certain character, and well, it's a get character, and you're pretty much doing this every update. And this is something that you can do only once on like a start, begin, or whatever. So for example, event blueprint begin play, and here just do that like this. Try get pawn owner.
Okay.
And that's the whole thing. We don't need to do this every frame. And now if you later want to use your variable, you can just drag your character, make a validated get, is valid, and this should be pretty much always valid, and later you can just drag it whenever you drag to your try get. But if for whatever reason this is not valid because a certain thing might not be loaded yet, or this might not be fired up for whatever reason, because the cast could fail, then you can just drag your is not valid to this cast to make sure that everything is okay. And this way you just don't need to cast another function that in this case runs a certain event and does a cast every single frame, because, and also check with the doers, because this is just pointless like usage of certain like computation time. Okay, so the next thing is your setting is swimming always depending on the mode, and this whole thing could be changed into a function or whatever that just always checks whether or not a player is swimming. So let's say that in the player, let's for now ignore this whole macaroni mess, and let's add a dispatcher. All right, and let's
What is the dispatcher?
well, this is pretty much an object to which you can bind certain functions, let's say mode, and later you can just call whenever something happened in every single place where you binded it. So for example, I can call that, call mode changed,
Yes.
and this will run on every single blueprint where it was assigned. And to assign it, you can just get your certain third person character and just bind to it. So for example, now I can here on start just wait, what was the name? Mode changed, bind event to mode changed, add custom event, and whenever the mode is changed, I want to set the is swimming. Like this.
All right.
And just change the name to mode changed, and mode changed. And whenever we do that, you can just then drag your stuff from the character and just set your swimming. So you're not doing this every frame. Later you can just assign what values you want there, so on and so forth. But yeah, that's a, oh, it's a movement node change. Wait, what's that? No, I need to compile that. Okay, now. So for whatever reason, I guess it's because the compilation of this whole file is failing, but normally just like you have your movement mode changed. Like this. I'm pretty much using this whenever this one is fired to run this event. So this pretty much says that this event will be connected to the event that is right there. And whenever the event in player is fired, this also is fired. Called or whatever. Therefore, we are not doing the setting of this variable every frame, but we are doing this only whenever the mode is changed. So also we are saving some computation time for that.
Okay.
Next thing is, for whatever reason you're changing the rotation of the actor. I don't actually know why, but let's leave that for now. Maybe this is for some gameplay aspects. The next thing is cast to third person character, cast to character. What's the difference between the character and the third person character here?
Seriously, I don't remember. I made it so long time ago. So with tutorials from YouTube, and I know it's a big mess here, but
yeah, so
I don't really remember. To be
so you should have in your player a component that's related to your equipment, and you can pretty much create a function with enumeration. You know what's an enum, right?
You can you show me?
So let's say I create a new enum there. So you can pretty much choose what you want with, and every single option has a certain assigned value to it. And in code, you can, for example, later create this inventory component, and here just drag this function and do like is item equipped, which returns a boolean, which is this red value. And you can just use an enum to that to just choose which one item you want to check for this particular thing. And this will make it a lot clearer than just doing this.
Okay.
All right. The next thing is try get bound. So look here, every single frame doing the cast 2 times. And they are also using 2 different methods for the getter. So pretty much this thing should happen only once also.
Okay.
So I don't know what's the difference between them. Let's just keep them there. Maybe that's because this didn't work. Let me see. Yeah, call mode changed. So here you can see I can do binds to this mode changed. And now I can God damn it. Alright, let me just remove that, because this one is different character because I was using this third person, and right now the third person character has the mode change. That was my mistake. And here you can see I can now bind to it, and whenever this call runs, so yeah, for example here the mode changed, whatever happens, you can call it, and whenever this node is called, this event will run.
Okay.
And you can also bind it in different blueprints. I've got a tutorial regarding that in blueprints as well as in C++, where it's called delegates. And pretty much if you do this bind in different blueprints, then whenever you call it, then every single binded event in every single blueprint that you want will be called at once.
Okay.
That's how it works. And you can also unbind it, like you can see it's call, bind, unbind all event, and assign. And that's pretty much it.
Right.
And okay, so yeah, this thing also happens only once. And let's call it for now TPT. later can just again get the TPC, validated get, and just run it with that. And if for whatever reason it is not valid, then we are running the cast again to that. And there you have like another logic. So this have canyon, like this thing, you can change it to a macro or whatever, but not for now. Let's start with this. Let's say this is a rotation, so collapse the function. And we can just call it like rotation stuff. Here speed is in error, okay. Now let's keep that as it is. Okay, so now here, anim notify step. So alright, here, whenever, this makes no sense for me. So whenever you do a step, as I guess, you're loading something from slot. It's regarding settings. You're doing a cast to something. You're getting the sound effect. You're casting again.
Yes, this is a loading volume of sound effect.
Okay, so you're casting again, getting all actors with tag. Then you're casting again. No, yeah. Look.
I see. I can see it now.
This thing should happen only once because the settings, as I think, the thing that is cast there will be always be the same, right? So you don't need to do this every step. Again, this cast, we already have that done once. We don't need to cast it again each step. Get all actors with tag. You don't want that. Pretty much, you know what's the ocean, and also ocean is always there, as I know, in your game. So
there's only one ocean in the whole game.
So the whole thing.
But I didn't want how to cast it and
so
plug
pretty
it
much
correctly.
It's get all actors of class. And you can, for example, get ocean.
Ocean BP. There's no file in this
I don't
project.
have this file from you, but later you can just do the get 0.
Yeah.
And you can use it. That's the whole thing.
Okay.
And you can use the get 0 to, for example, cast if you need to, but it should work. And just, don't do this each frame, because each frame you're iterating through every actor with tag to find the ocean, and it's just really bad for the computation time. Next thing is you're casting that, so again, just you want to do this once because there's always only one ocean. Then you check is overlapping actor, and if it is, then you're spawning sound. If it's fall, okay, so you're spawning different sounds, all right, but still, the main logic, this should happen only once somewhere, and it should be cached. You don't need to check either each frame or in this case on each step.
Okay, it should load the sound effect volume only once, and then every step play sounds with this saved
from this saved
volume. Okay.
Here you do the same, so I hope you know what's wrong with that.
Yes.
Alright, so let's leave it as it is. Also, this could be collapsed into a function. So, for example, whatever, like play sound, and you can add, for example, an enumerator again, where you declare for what the sound should be played, and here you can later just call the same play sound, and here just declare for steps, and here just declare for swimming. You understand what I mean, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that would be way easier for this. Let's go now to idle state. Okay, so here we have blending pose. So we have idle run 2D, idle run with rock, stick. And
these are different animations for every item you're holding.
Okay, so you might want to increase the blend time to like 0.4 to make it look a bit better, because this is the blending between the animations. Later, you also have idle run. There's a jump start, a jump loop, jump end. And for the jump start, you check if it's in error. Later, start asset, not is in error. Okay, so you do some basic
I guess
tricks.
it's a default by third person character project, so
Yeah.
I didn't even change it at all.
Okay. Anim graph. Okay, so we've got the state machine right there, and you set as pose default. And later you use you get the upper body.
This is animation blend for animating only the upper part of our character, so he could running and, for example, hitting by a stick in the same time.
Alright, getcha. Later you just modify the bones related to your aim rotation, and that's your final animation. Okay, we can go with that. That's okay-ish. Later you have the Nudist Animation, and it's related to AI. Again, you have a sequence. In this one, you also had a sequence at start, and what you would really want to do is just collapse those things into separate functions and just run them after each other if you have to, because running a sequence each frame is like calling, alright, this, that, this instantly each frame, and this is just, again, some computation time that you don't want, because in blueprints, the slowest thing in blueprints is the connection between nodes, because this is generating some macaroni C++ code, and you just want the least amount of connections between nodes that you can get. And sequence is doing the exact opposite of that. Alright, so we've got your delta time. I guess you're using it somewhere instead of just this place.
This is for swimming, I guess.
Yeah, but okay, let's see. Default. Sorry, not there. Or actually there. Idle run. No, you're using speed for swimming. And speed is declared on the vector length. So you don't need to set this variable each frame, because you already have this value right here. So you can just drag it and drop it there.
Okay.
So you have unnecessary variable. Also, we don't need this sequence right there.
This is also
Again, try get pawn owner, and you're doing this get character again. This should happen only once without the do once or whatever. But I hope you understand it now. It's an error. Okay. This again, you know, it should be on the delegate whenever it's changed. So it's only, this set only happens when we change to swimming mode. And that's the whole thing. And again, you've got this rotation stuff, which I don't fully understand, but let's go with that. And you've got your jumps. Yeah, that's it. All right, so let's jump to the third person character, and we can see there's a whole lot of macaroni. So let's start with the top left. So your event stick is doing way too much stuff. Like, I don't believe that you need all this stuff to be happening each frame. And remember that event stick runs for each frame. So for example, we have 60 frames per second. This whole shit runs 60 times per second, and I really doubt you need that, because there's way too much in my opinion. Also, in your class settings and also your class defaults, you can set your tick interval. So you can, for example, say that it only ticks each 0.2 seconds or so, because in most cases you don't really need event tick. I mean, the tick function to run each frame, you just can say, all right, run 5 times a second and not 60 times a second. You get what I'm saying, right?
Yes.
Okay. This is like a huge game changer when you have lots of different objects. Also, for certain objects, you want to disable the start with tick enabled, and in code, only when something happened, I don't remember the name of this function, but pretty much set actor tick enabled, and then you only enable it. So for example, we need right now to update something, so we set the tick enabled for this certain thing. So let's start with the first thing. It goes to the tracer. So the tracer is getting your camera world location, forward vector, okay, and is doing a certain trace. Here we are doing some message nodes, also constructing, I guess, a widget, because you've got to add to viewport.
Yes.
And okay, so whenever it hits something, you construct a widget. All right, so the first thing is you want to construct your widgets only once.
Yes.
So you don't allocate.
There is the one's blueprint.
Okay, but I mean, for example, on begin play, you
Mm-hmm.
create every single widget, but you don't add them to viewport, you just save them in variables. So in
Okay.
runtime, you don't allocate new memory for the widgets. And later you just use them as variables, and whenever you need to just add to viewport or just hide them. For example, set visibility, visible, hide, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
All right. Also, there's this do once. Holy cow. Not this. You've got this do once, which you don't want, because each frame you check this do once, and each frame you run through this logic.
Oh, okay.
And there's no point of doing that. Also, the sequence, set visibility, yeah, you don't need this whole stuff. Input action. Normally, your whole logic related to input should be in a class which is called Playercontroller, and here you add your every single input, whatever you want. You just do cast to, for example, player, and you just run a certain method. So for example, here you press pickup, somewhere in begin play you cast to the player, and you've got the player, and you just invoke a method in player on picked up, and you do stuff, and it should be in a method, because this whole stuff should be collapsed to methods. For example, this collapse to function. No, because there are those things. We just remove it. Yeah, collapse to function. And why cannot I do that? Set visibility.
And set the time.
Too many input connections. All right, whatever. But later you also have to think about that. Also you have the touch inputs. This every single thing related to input should be like this. Also you've got your event hit. So I guess whenever you're hit, and again you have a sequence with tons of different stuff. Should be just once, and you should check. All right, I guess only an AI can hit you, right? Then
yes, that's already
yeah. Then only you do a cast if that's an enemy type, and you've got as boss 1, as nudist, as boss 2, as boss 3. It should be as enemy, and every AI, every boss should inherit from enemy. So you, for example, create a blueprint class that is called enemy. You have every single basic methods right there, and later you do a certain nudist and certain boss, and they have like some different values, stuff, so on and so forth.
Okay.
But long story short, if you just do this to enemy, it will work for every single of them. Like, if you want to learn why, you can just learn about object-oriented programming and stuff related to polymorphism. But for now, let's just stick that this will just work if you do it this way. You've got your event hit, is simulating physics. Okay, so yeah. You've got also too many casts right there. Impulse allocation, okay. Like this. Also, you've got the targets. You don't need those targets. Like really, you just should drag the objects pin and it should work. Next thing is also you've got the inputs that you don't really want. You do some checks, and yeah, this logic looks like it could be way simplified. Like there's too much of a checking of everything. You should try to reduce the amount of sequences that you use because you don't want them. You should make it simplified and also use just functions. So you call up stuff to functions and you just connect them. So everything, like when I helped you with certain things in this project, I pretty much removed, what I left was like this many nodes.
Okay.
And the rest was functions or whatever. All right, so here, this is, if you see something like that, you want to rethink what the fuck you're doing. Because in most cases, you just want to create a certain functions that just handle this for you, and it's dynamic. So this one function will handle any recipe, any like weapon, and so on and so forth, as I said before with the enum.
Okay.
Yeah, recipe done. It should just iterate through, for example, saved stuff. Just iterate through every single recipe. Let's say it's an array. You know what's an array, right?
Yes. Yes.
Then you could save it in array and later iterate over this whole array and set everything once, and that's it. And you would just remove this whole section to like a few nodes, like change it to like few nodes.
Okay.
Here we've got some set static mesh. Okay. So again, it looks there's kind of too much of this stuff. Later you have any key pressed.
This is a enabling of a gaming controller, Xbox controller, and mouse.
Okay.
You switch between those two.
Okay. But you check it different way. Also, this should happen once, but to check, okay, you can do is mouse, is gamepad, is keyboard, but I don't know if is gamepad key will return if you just move this shroom to a certain direction, because normally when I checked that before, it's just, maybe it's even in the project settings by default. So let's see. Inputs, no it's not. So, oh, there are some stuff. So let's say move right, and you've got this Tomba's left thumbstick, right? And
Yes.
the thing is, it will just return you a float value between -1 and 1 as far as I remember. And I was checking, all right, if this value was not used on a keyboard, which is always like either -1, 1 or 0, but it's between, like it's interpolated. That means you're using the gamepad, and that means that you need to change. Also, as I said, I'm not sure if it will work for that. I will need to check that later, but yeah, just in case. This should happen once, like you don't want to get all widgets of class each time you press something. Again, here, get all widgets of class, you do a cast, and I also guess, all right, at least it's not happening each frame but on begin play, so there's a plus for you. Again, get all, okay. Nudist killed, cache achievements, right, achievement progress. So this thing should be in the nudist, not in the player.
All right.
So when he dies, he just do that, because when you start scripting, in this case scripting or programming stuff, like this is whole object oriented, and there's a rule that says that single class, single responsibility, and player should only care about player stuff. For example, equipment, you should do another blueprint, let's say component, that is only related to equipment, and it handles only the equipment stuff. Grabbing only component that's for grabbing. Load game, save game, only component that's for that. And when something dies, then player doesn't give a shit if Nudist dies, but the Nudist does. So whenever Nudist dies, he runs some certain stuff. You understand what I'm saying, right?
Yes, yes.
Also for crafting, loading, crafting material, like it should be in different blueprints. So it's way easier to use. Again, this equipment select 5, lots of branches. This should be done in, because look, you are repeating pretty much the same logic. It's really familiar. You could for sure do that in a function and just describe what you want to call. So you just do this once in a certain function with certain input parameters that will declare what you exactly want to do. So you don't need to repeat this tons of times. Always when you see like repeating code, you need to think of a way to not make it this way. Because
Okay.
there's always the way. The same for this, as I see right now. Like, yeah, metal plate, yeah, the same applies here. Totally. Switch to int. Again, some messages. Oh, you don't really want that. What's even really crafting item spawning? This is bad. This is really bad. So you do once, and you only reset this when something happened. Well, pretty much if something goes through, and let's say it's this 70 seconds, and let's say, wait, let me think. You've got that, it goes there. Okay. So do once, and it's reset only when this is finished, or when the cache achievements, or when you created something. Okay, so this is a potential huge bug related to these delays. Like you don't want that. You want this to be a certain other function, and you want to rethink these delays, because when something runs and you run this cache achievements, then you can pretty much, as I see, craft it again, and the delay will restart. So for example, there was only 1 second left, but someone wanted this again, and this haven't finished, but it's restarted because the delays don't stack. You understand what I'm saying, right?
Yes, I understand.
Yeah. So
But
this, yeah.
this item, when you craft an item, then all ingredients are disappearing. So there's impossible to craft this item again and restart this delay.
Okay, but still, in my opinion, you should like.
There's no bug in here, but I understand what you're
This is just risky.
what's on your mind.
You never want risky
Okay.
stuff in your game.
Okay.
Again, here's some weird
I don't even remember what is
shenanigan
this.
logic. Equipment height again. This
Ah,
is,
yes, these are widgets
yeah.
that are uploading at the start of the game.
Yeah, so again, equipment height, you want this in inputs to later. Oh. You never want something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pressed. And the reason
Right.
is it's fucking hard to later find it.
Uh-huh.
Because if you try to search for 1, then you will see each variable, each call, each everything that has a 1 in its name. But when you create an input, let's say action mappings, let's say do stuff on this, do stuff on this button, then searching for that is way easier when you do this. Say do stuff on this button, now I search for that, I instantly have that. But if I write 1, then well, a good fucking luck.
Alright.
Okay, I've got that. Again, this stuff, repeating again, you should rethink that. Movement input, this should also be in the controller. Swimming again. And where else, like the whole tick should be rethinked. You've got, for example, ticking crafting recipes. why do you tick them? It should be, I guess you can pick up crafting recipes, am I right?
I needed to how can I say it? I needed to God, I don't I don't really remember, seriously.
Okay,
I made it
because
for like
if
2
that's
months
picking
ago.
up, yeah, if that's picking up, then you just want to add a event on picked up and only then do that. And if that's yeah, that's pretty much it. As I see, you've got some dildo, metal detector, just have canyon. Like you only want to run that whenever you pick up something or equip it or whatever, and not each frame, because you just lose your computation time. And the same goes like swimming tutorial. Like each time you get all widgets of class, which is wrong. Get current level name each time. Like you can also save that in a variable. Remember, whenever you can save something in variable and you know this will be always valid, then just save that. You don't need to get current level name each time, because you're just calling another function. It's just another computation that you don't need. Later we've got this do once, which is always, so it's only once you do this. No, this is also like wrong. You just, if you need that, then you just save that. The do once, if that's the do once, then you want to do this on begin play and not each frame just go to this do once, and this do once will say, all right, I'm never resetted, so you never can go through, but you need to go into me anyway. Later we've got those widgets. All right, that's the viewport. Later we've got some background sounds. Again, you have some do once. Yeah, so your logic is wrong in the way that you're doing a tick and do once, and yes, it can work, but because of that, from the optimization perspective, it is really slow. It just wants to run on the events, so whenever something happens, do something, and not some checks of booleans each frame or whatever it is. So we get some heal. Yeah, but mostly that. Also, I guess your helicopter is also tick. And yeah, you're again doing some casts, visibility. Yeah, so I think you already understand what I mean by this all stuff.
Yes,
also here you see repeating. Yeah, repeating stuff.
These are saving, I guess.
Yeah.
At the end of this code.
And it should be like
should be a safe
array of recipes, and just
yes.
It should be a function that takes as input a certain array, and it just saves this whole array at
That's
once.
my fault, because I made an at the beginning of this project I made every single variable for every single recipe instead of making an array. So
yeah, so that's one thing. And I hope it's not called every frame. Okay. So there's that, and also let me see your mesh. So for the collision, you want to also ignore the channels that you are not using. So for example, in this game, you are not using the destructible and the vehicle, for example, because each channel that is blocked will be used in the iteration of the channels that you're using under the hood and the CPP code related to the collision. And you don't need that.
Okay.
So whenever you can ignore something, ignore it. Okay, and also, yeah, let's say that you've got a certain object somewhere in the level. Then also you want to check the collisions. If you can ignore whatever you can. For example, in this case, player cannot get to this object, right? So you want to ignore every single collision because there's no way to collide with it.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if the player cannot see the shadows, you want to disable the shadows, because shadows are like calculated on the GPU, and there's just, you know, another calculations that you don't need in your game, so your game can run faster on shitter PCs or whatever there is.
Yes.
And also, if for whatever reason you have a nav mesh there, which you shouldn't have, you want to disable the can affect navigation, so it doesn't matter. And yeah, that's for the start. I will not go into the shader optimization, because that would be too much for now, but also, let's say if you have this new blueprint, let's say actor, and I place it there, then you want to disable tick at start and just do when something happens. So let's say add custom event grabbed, let's say, only then set actor tick enabled, and let's say add custom event, and let's say this is like left behind, and we are disabling the tick. Whenever you can, you want to disable the tick of certain blueprints, because each blueprint by default is ticking. So each frame, it checks a certain amount of code. In this example, there's not really much to check, but if you don't need your logic on tick, because under the hood it runs the tick for actor, it runs the tick for the object, and it runs internally the engine to just tick. I mean, that's just a new iteration for the loop, which is for the objects in the engine. And you don't want that. You want to only enable it when you have to.
Sure. Every single blueprint is on the map is ticking, so
yeah. So you want to only tick when you have to. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's it. Yeah, and also set the tick interval to, for example, 0.2, so you tick only 5 times a second instead of 60 if you have 60 FPS. The replication, we won't look at this because this is related to networking, and this is not again related to networking. And yeah, that's pretty much it to the like basic optimization and how the stuff should be done in Unreal. So did you like it?
Yes, that's very helpful.
Alrighty, so this will be it for the lesson. Like, thank you for listening, coming, and yeah.
Thank you, too.
Alrighty, cheers.
Cheers.